I focus on the short run because we don't have a short run, we don't have a long run either. Now, I'm very concerned about the short run.
The policy response today in the very short run, as Guillermo was emphasizing, will determine crucially what happens 6 months from now.
What this crisis is doing is forcing us to do something fiscal right there. So there is a transfer to large, small and medium enterprises, a transfer to the informal sector. So how do you finance that?
Governments have to be aware that they need more bullets because this is going to last for a while. This gray area is going to be very demanding in terms of government support.
I'm afraid that the main tool that these countries have in the short run is money. QE, some sort of QE.
The big difference, of course, between rich countries and poor countries is that rich countries, advanced countries, issue reserve currencies, and they can afford to do whatever it takes. First of all, because they're not rationed out of debt markets, and secondly, because they issue currencies that people are willing to hold in an emergency.
The two parts of the world, so to say, the advanced markets and the emerging markets are different. While here, you have a machine for printing dollars. That doesn't happen in the South. If you try to do the same thing in the South, you may run into trouble.
The central banks are providing a lot of liquidity. We know that, but we know that liquidity is just a necessary condition for the expansion because we are seeing levels of risk that we have never seen before.
If you have to do these transfers, an advantage of inflation is that it can reduce the real value of government expenditure. And you can use that bonus, so to say, to transfer to where you wanted the money to go to in the short run. So that has to be very well understood. In this crisis, inflation, of course, in the whole episode, inflation rises quite a bit. But at the beginning, you have some sort of convexity there. So inflation, as we know, starts going slowly and all of a sudden jumps up. So we have to be careful because we are going through this period where inflation is not a big issue. But that can change. Even though we are really facing a very challenging future because we know very little about it, it's a short run that we have to take care very carefully because we can impair the possibility of a reasonable, satisfactory medium term. My focus is on problems that may arise in the payment system. If you don't deal with this carefully, then you have a list of problems. Provincial authorities they have no way to pay. So it's as simple as that. And financial repression, something that Cameron Reichert has been reminded us lately. The market exchange rate doubles the official exchange rate. So you know what happens with that. Does not help. That doesn't help the payment system. Paying interest on money. Because you are desperate, you have wanted to use your money to help in the informal sector, but at the same time, you're worried about inflation. So in some way or another, you start compensating money holders in different ways. You pay interest through the banking system. I cannot enter into details. And that is the mechanism for hyperinflation. If you don't have a healthy banking system or payment system, you don't have a way to make the transfer. Small things like that we usually in macro, we don't think much about it, can interfere very seriously.
For example, the credit guarantees that governments are offering. We don't know what's going to happen with the quality of debt, and eventually some of those guarantees will materialize.
While the whole system has a sudden stop, the sectors, public and private sector, are hit differently. The private sector can hit very badly